UCLA.
With USC great and NFL stud Frosty Rucker.
The Trojans back in front.
And LAFB founder Ryan Dyrud on the Believe Podcast Network and LAFBnetwork.com. This is your destination for Los Angeles football.
What's happening, Los Angeles? And thank you for tuning in to the LA Football Show. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Dyrud, and we have a good one for you today, Chargers fans. Good buddy of mine, Zac Stevens, phenomenal beat reporter of the Broncos for the DNVR out there in Denver, jumps on with me to preview this division matchup. It is a big one. Your Chargers, fighting for sole possession of the AFC West. However, if the Broncos win and the Chiefs lose, the Broncos are in sole possession of the AFC West. So it is a wild, wild game and a very important game for this Bolts team as Brandon Staley plays his mentor, if you will, in Vic Fangio. Always a great game when these two teams meet, and this one's going to be no different. So Zach and I get all into it. Before we jump into that, though, let me talk to you about my friends at MyBookie. It's Thanksgiving week. Depending when you're listening to this, it could be past Thanksgiving or Thanksgiving Day. Hopefully beforehand, though, because we got a great deal for you with MyBookie. Gives you plenty of reasons to be thankful. And they're starting with a $250 risk-free bet on Thursday afternoon. That's Thanksgiving, when the Dallas Cowboys host the Las Vegas Raiders. So bet the spread between the Raiders and Cowboys at MyBookie. When you win, you win. And if you don't, MyBookie will refund you up to $250. Simply put, you can't lose this bet. If you put $250 on this bet, you will not lose it. That's no risk, all gravy. Before you get your wager in, set yourself up for success by doubling your first deposit when you use my promo code LAFB at MyBookie. That's promo code LAFB to double your initial deposit all the way up to $1,000. You don't need to break the wishbone to be the one to come out ahead. Feast risk-free on Turkey Day with MyBookie, and make sure to stick around for seconds as they gear up for what should be a fun Black Friday with tons of odds boosts that will have your belly and your pockets full. Bet anything, anywhere, anytime with MyBookie. It's mybookie.ag. All right, let's get Zach on here and preview this Chargers and Broncos game. Chargers fans, as I mentioned and alluded to in the intro, got a fantastic guest, good buddy of mine. Excited to have him back on the LA Football Show and preview a big-time game, big-time matchup, two AFC West division rivals as the Chargers travel to Denver to play the Broncos. And joining me to preview it all down is the Broncos beat writer for DNVR, Mr. Zac Stevens. What's going on, man? How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic. How are you doing, my friend?
Doing great. Can't complain. It's a nice, beautiful, sunny day out here in California. What's the weather like in Denver? You guys got snow yet, or is it still pretty mild out there?
I think I heard this morning that it's the longest drought of snow that we've ever had. We just set a record for that. So no snow.
Wow.
It was some California weather earlier. It was 64, and now some stuff's blowing in. I think we get a little bit of a cold front tomorrow. But I think I also did hear for Sunday's game, we're going to have that LA weather. I think it's going to be high 60s and sun.
Okay. I was going to say, it would be perfect just in time for the Chargers to come. You'll get your first snowstorm on Sunday just for the LA Chargers to roll in and have to play in the snow.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, thanks so much for coming on. Me and you linked up a few years ago, and when I started following you and we kind of tacked, and I had you on the show a long time ago. I think you were at 3,000 or 4,000 Twitter followers, and now you're at 21. So you're big time now. You've made it. You're over the 20K threshold. Congratulations.
Thank you. I mean, looking right at you, look what you've done with this show. It is awesome. I love that you guys are taking over the LA network.
Appreciate it. Yeah, we're kind of symbolizing what DNVR is doing out there, and now you guys have moved to Phoenix. Congratulations on that, by the way. So you guys are doing awesome stuff, and we're kind of taking that community approach as well out here. So it's been a lot of fun and going on your guys' coattails. But anyway, man, this game, it's always fun. Any division game is a blast. And this, my listeners do know this. The Broncos are my hometown team. I'm not shy about it, but I cover the Chargers and the Rams and the LA guys out here. And the Chargers have a really good squad this year. They've had some down games, but overall, I think they're a good contending playoff team. The Broncos as well have a good roster. They've had some questionable games, some questionable coaching, some questionable QB play, which we're going to kind of get into all that. But just on the forefront, Zach, kind of what's the vibe in Denver around this 5-5 Bronco team right now?
Boy, I would say the vibe is as bad as it can be for a 5-5 team. I mean, the Broncos and Chiefs game the week after the Chargers game coming up this weekend was just flexed to Sunday night, and it couldn't be more negative in Denver just about, oh no, the Broncos are going to lose and get embarrassed on prime time now. It's like, no, guys, if the Broncos beat the Chargers this week and beat the Chiefs, which are huge ifs, but if that happens, they'll be first place in the AFC West after. So, I mean, and so the vibe is people are tired of this coaching staff. People are tired of the quarterback play. People are tired of the direction this team has been going in the past 5 years. So the Broncos team gets no benefit of the doubt anymore. And I understand why people are upset. But I mean, it's like we're living in a 2-8 world right now when really the team's 5-5. They're 2 games back of the division lead.
Yeah, it's I have a ton of friends in Denver and even not in Denver, but they're just Bronco fans. So we talk all the time in the chats, and yeah, the negativity is crazy. I mean, I was looking last night, and the AFC in general, there's only 4 teams under 500 in the AFC. So this thing is wide open, and things can certainly change in a hurry. And I know you talk about the flex game, and out here in LA was a very different response because that same week, the Chargers and Justin Herbert play the Bengals and Joe Burrow. And so a lot of Chargers fans wanted that game flexed. You know, the first matchup between these 2 first-round picks, both are playing lights out, both are playoff contending teams. And everyone's like, you chose the Teddy Bridgewater-led Broncos and the Chiefs. But, it'll be an interesting game. And obviously you have to choose those flex games at least 10 days out. So I think they're banking on what you said. If the Broncos were to win this weekend against the Chargers, then all of a sudden that is a big-time game because now it is fighting for that first place in the AFC. So that all being said, and I don't want to put you in an awkward spot or anything like that because obviously you're in the building, you cover the team, but what's just your thought on this coaching staff and Vic Fangio? Do you think this is kind of the last year, or do you think they can still save their jobs if they make the playoffs? Or is it kind of, at this point, it's run its course and they'll probably move on?
Well, as this season goes on, it really does start to feel more like playoffs or bust for this coaching staff. And even Teddy Bridgewater, there was a lot more leeway 2 weeks ago for this coaching staff, in my opinion, and for Teddy Bridgewater. Right after they beat the Cowboys, Teddy had a great game. The Broncos coaching staff was up for the game. Vic Fangio was fired up on the sideline, fired up after the game in the press conference. That's the Vic Fangio the Broncos needed. Everything was looking good. 5-4, 1 week going into the bye week. All they had to do was beat the Philadelphia Eagles, and they laid an absolute egg. Gave up 216 rushing yards. Of course, Teddy pulls up instead of trying to make a tackle after a Melvin Gordon fumble, and everything has just been going very, very downhill since. And so now I do get the sense that if the Broncos finish 8-9, there's a conversation about Vic potentially saving his job, but it more so looks like he has to go 9-8 and or make the playoffs. But if they go 9-8, I really think that's enough for the Broncos to make the playoffs and to be okay. And especially for Vic to keep his job. And then same thing with Teddy. The Broncos are going to try for some big-time free agents, or I shouldn't say free agents, big-time veterans, such as Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson. I think every team outside of the guys that have Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, are going to be trying for those guys. But the Broncos are going to try that route. If those guys don't work out, though, then Teddy could be back for another season. And what Broncos fans really hope is if that's the case, that there's a first-round rookie quarterback sitting behind him.
Yeah, and, just this week, in almost simultaneous days, Broncos re-signed Tim Patrick and Cortland Sutton to long-term deals. Out here in LA, we think we have 2 of the best receivers in the game with Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. Currently, their contract, they take up about $35 million between the 2 of them. Mike's on his 5th-year option, so obviously he needs to be extended still, which I think they're hopefully working on in the background as we speak. But, the Broncos actually got a pretty good hometown discount for these 2 receivers. First off, where do you kind of rank these guys in terms of just output of receivers in the entire league and maybe versus these 2 Charger receivers? And then also when you look at those contracts, I know George Payton, the GM, isn't going to say this, but it seems like that is to make a move for a big-time quarterback because they're bringing back the pieces in place, and they're also saving some money for it too.
Yeah, and the thing about this Broncos receiving group is it goes much further than just those two. You also have Jerry Jeudy, who probably should be the best one of that group, but obviously he's still
Mhm.
on a rookie deal, so they don't have to pay him for a while. And then you also have KJ Hamler, who the Broncos probably shouldn't rely on him anymore. But man, when he's healthy, he has that 4.3 speed that can take the top off of defenses. And so when you look at the deals, I think the Broncos got great value in both of these guys, having them for $25 million a season on top of the Jerry Jeudy only on his rookie contract. Same with KJ Hamler. But I've never been one to really like paying for two receivers if you don't have a quarterback. The Broncos did that with
Mhm.
Emmanuel Sanders and Demaryius Thomas after Peyton Manning left, and that did not work out. And then when you have a really good quarterback, you don't really need the receivers. What you really need is a good offensive line built from the inside out. So that would be my criticism for paying both of these guys. But it is hard to ignore the really good value that these guys got. And in terms of what type of receivers they are, Tim Patrick, he's the best third receiver in the game, which sometimes
Mhm.
he is when Cortland Sutton's playing up to it and Jerry Jeudy is living up to his potential. Tim Patrick's the third receiver, and he's the best third receiver in the game. Now, Tim Patrick can also be a good number one receiver, and we've seen that when Cortland Sutton has missed some time last year. We've seen Tim Patrick be able to be a good receiver. Cortland Sutton, he can be a top 10 receiver in the NFL. We've seen it. He had a 150-yard game
Mhm.
earlier this year. He's had a couple 100-yard games, but his lows are too low. In the past 3 games, Cortland Sutton has 70 receiving yards. It's total. 70
Mhm.
total receiving yards. If to be an elite receiver, your bad games have to be 70 yards in one game, not 70 yards over 3 games. So he needs to raise his floor up, but he can be a very dominant receiver. And then Jerry Jeudy, man, he is one of the best route runners in the NFL, but we haven't seen that translate to stats yet. Now, he was hurt, bad quarterback play. And then to get to your final question there about what does this mean? The Broncos are setting up a run at a big quarterback. I absolutely think they're going to try to get one of those big
Mhm.
time quarterbacks, but I don't think that these moves tip me off to that, because if the Broncos were to lose Tim Patrick or Cortland Sutton, their receiving core is still really good enough to attract an Aaron Rodgers or a Russell Wilson. What this does is, man, it really allows them to be able to get a rookie quarterback, pay two guys $25 million, because right now the Broncos are at about $55 million in cap space for next year after Cortland Sutton and Tim Patrick's deal. If
Mhm.
you add Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson for 35, 40 million, okay, you get to sign your draft class and maybe sign one or two guys in free agency. However, if you get a rookie quarterback, then you're going to have $50 million to work with in the offseason to really build that team up around a rookie quarterback. So, of course, you're going to try for the future Hall of Fame quarterback. But if it doesn't work, the Broncos are in a really good spot to build this team around a rookie.
Yeah, it seems like George Payton's came in and really made his stamp early and just in one off season and kind of you can. I know a lot of fans maybe not think this, but when you look back at from afar, you can see his vision and what he's building, what he's doing, and he's doing it the right way and not being over aggressive or under aggressive. And it seems like he's done a good job so far in a short time there. Piggybacking off the receiver play you're talking about and looking at this game specifically. So the Chargers, and I'm sure you've done your due diligence already, looking forward to this game, but beginning of the year, and still statistically, because they were so bad in the beginning, but the worst rush defense in the NFL. Now they've been astronomically better the last few weeks, but they still rank last because of how bad they were the first few weeks, but they have gotten better. However, Linval Joseph, who missed last week, is now on the COVID protocol. It was reported that he's unvaccinated, so I assume that means he will be out for this game, having to miss, I think, at least 10 days or so. So that's a big cog missed in this defensive line. They had two practice squad guys play last week and played great against Najee Harris in this rushing attack for Pittsburgh. Shockingly, and fans are like, why are we seeing these guys more often? The secondary now has been kind of the strength of this Chargers defense, but Asante Samuel Jr. just had his second concussion, which we all know with concussion protocols nowadays, he's probably going to be out 4, 5, 6, maybe even longer because of how serious that is and how young is his career. You don't want to rush him back too soon. So it's almost like I taking a long time to lead up to this question, but the change of the guard in the Chargers defense is horrible run defense, better in the secondary, and now it's almost shifting. So when you look at this game, do you think the Broncos will try to be balanced? Like every team, obviously you say that, but it never really happens in the NFL nowadays. Or do you think they try to exploit the secondary, or do they stick with Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams and run the football?
Well, what they should do is they should stick to the running game and pound the rock. One of the things the Broncos have is they have a fantastic 1-2 punch with Melvin Gordon, who you guys know very well, and Javonte Williams. And Melvin Gordon, up until just a couple of games ago, had no fumbling issues for about the past 16 games. He was reliable, and also he was a guy that was averaging 5 yards per carry. And the thing the Broncos could count on is he would get between 3 and 7 yards per carry for them. He was so reliable. And then the second guy, Javonte Williams, second-round draft pick, phenomenal rookie. I mean, nearly just as good as Najee Harris, who you guys just shut down. His thing was kind of the opposite for the first half of the season. He was a guy who was going to get 1 yard, 1 yard, 1 yard, and then break out a 30-yard run and carry 7 guys on his back and was just going to be an absolute beast. But 3 weeks ago, when the Broncos beat the Washington football team, Melvin Gordon had a crucial fumble. Now, it didn't end up hurting the Broncos because the defense stepped up, but then last week, right before the bye, he had another crucial fumble, which is, of course, that led to Teddy Bridgewater not trying to make a tackle, and that outraged so many fans. But Melvin started that by fumbling the ball, and that really kind of put the game in the bag for the Broncos, where they lost to the Eagles. So, but to get back to the point, the Broncos need to stick with that ground game because it's been very good for the most part. And I actually think Javonte Williams is now just starting to take over as that number one guy. So they need to stick to the ground game. But just as probably most teams in the NFL experience, it's much more difficult for an offensive coordinator to keep balance in a game than it is to just talk about it. The Broncos typically get away from the running game and just go straight to the passing game. And Teddy Bridgewater, he's having the best year of his career. He's having the best year for a Broncos quarterback since Peyton Manning in 2014. But he still isn't a top 10 quarterback. And if you're going to put the game on just one guy's shoulders at the quarterback position, he's got to be a Justin Herbert type level. He's got to be at worst a Derek Carr level. And Derek Carr's having a fantastic year. But you got to be that good in order to do that. And Teddy Bridgewater is not that. So the Broncos should stick to the running game. But look at the Chargers offense. I mean, putting up 40 points, multiple times this year, coming off a 41-point game. If it gets anywhere close to that, where the Chargers take a 10-point lead, a 14-point lead, the Broncos are going to abandon the run game. And as you said, maybe that actually plays into the strengths and weaknesses of the Chargers defense right now.
Yeah. And it's funny how coaches nowadays, how everyone abandons the run. Like it's so, other than maybe the Baltimore Ravens, it's rare that a coach actually sticks to the run if they're even 3 points down. So not be shocking at all to see that change. Chargers ran the ball, 11 times last game. It was working. They put up 42 points, but they were winning by 17 and still weren't running. And many of the fan base wanted that because of the last few weeks before that. So Javonte Williams for you guys has been great. He reminds me, there's a UCLA running back out here in LA by the name of Zach Charbonnet, who is going to be a dynamic NFL runner. And they're very similar because they can run people over, but they're also like finesse in between the tackles and can, dodge people too. So, Williams is a guy the Chargers are going to have to look out for. And if you guys are talking about on your show, something you can say to just caution Broncos fans, because I'm sure many will say, if this game goes differently and the Broncos aren't running the ball with a ton of success, we'll say, Chargers, worst run defense in the league. We can't even run against them. Just caution that the Chargers have been much better the last few weeks. They're not right now the worst run defense in the league. But that being said,
that's a great tip because people in Denver are talking about how they're the worst rush defense in the league. But you're absolutely right. I mean, the Broncos secondary was actually getting burned at the beginning of this season and then has really improved the last couple of weeks. So statistically, I think it's actually still a pretty good pass defense statistically, but it's gotten much better. And then actually the Broncos run defense, kind of the exact opposite. It started pretty good this season. I don't want to say it started elite, but it started pretty good. And now they're giving up 100-yard games back to back games, and including a season high 216 rushing yards against the Eagles, who didn't have their starting running back.
Yeah. Well, on the Eagles, I said Baltimore. The Eagles are definitely a very run-first team now with Jalen Hurts, and they've definitely bought into that as their offensive identity, and it's worked the last 3 or 4 weeks, other than they did lose to the Chargers. But even that, they had to get a lot of running yards too. So, Zach, these two coaches, we'll get you out of here in just a minute. But these two coaches, I know both do, but I know Brandon Staley has a ton of respect for Vic Fangio. When he was a coach at John Carroll, I believe there's a story going back to there where he was calling Vic Fangio saying, "Hey, I want you to mentor me. I want to kind of learn your defensive mind." And Vic brought him on staff in Chicago and followed him to Denver. And then obviously he was in LA with the Rams last year, now head coach of the Chargers. So these guys go back. Brandon Staley is an apostle of Vic Fangio. They run basically the Fangio defense out here in LA with some wrinkles, but that too high shell. So who do you think has the upper hand? Because they should know each other's kind of tendencies. But do you think it's the young Staley who now has Joe Lombardi out here? Do you think it's the old-time vet in Vic Fangio? Who has the upper hand in terms of just defensive prowess in this week?
Man, I mean, it's a great question and really interesting to think about. You think it would be the guy with almost 4 decades of experience in the NFL, but Vic Fangio has never coached under Brandon Staley. He doesn't exactly know the ins and outs of his defense. Brandon Staley should know the ins and outs of Vic's defense, especially because he did coach in Denver under this exact defense. Now, obviously, Vic has a couple more wrinkles now, but I actually might give the nod to Brandon Staley here because he has learned from Vic Fangio, knows exactly the ins and outs, and I'm sure that Brandon Staley is running pretty much what Vic did, but now he has his own wrinkles that Vic Fangio doesn't know about. So in a crazy roundabout way, it's the young guy, and I got to tell you what, man, the Broncos fans are just so bummed that not only the Chargers have Justin Herbert, who John Elway liked in the draft process, but then he went back to school, so the Broncos, he was, and then he went back to Oregon, so the Broncos couldn't take him. But on top of that, they look around the division, and of course the Chiefs have their quarterback and head coach, but now the Chargers don't just have their quarterback. Man, it seems like Brandon Staley is the truth, and the Chargers have their coach too. And then, of course, the Raiders, well, they have Derek Carr, who makes the Broncos quarterback, whether it's Teddy Bridgewater, Drew Lock, any of the guys the past couple of years, definitely the 4th best quarterback in the AFC West, or I should say the worst quarterback in the AFC West. But the Raiders have a couple more problems, obviously. But, I mean, looking around the AFC West, and it's a dark place for the Broncos.
Yeah, and it's crazy, Zach, that how different this world could be if Herbert, and I've told Chargers fans this a lot, if Herbert doesn't go back that year, the Broncos are sitting at 5 that year, and he was Elway's guy. I know everyone had linked Elway to Josh Allen. Obviously, he didn't take him, went Bradley Chubb, but Herbert was his guy, and Herbert would be in orange and blue. So Chargers fans should be breathing a sigh of relief that he went back that final year and fell to the Chargers at 6 the next year. Because we'd be looking at a very different, I think, dichotomy in this division. So, Zach, let's get you out of here with this. I could talk to you all day, obviously, about this and these two teams and how much fun and the similarities between them, I think, with how the defenses are built, kind of what they're trying to do on offense as well. Who do you like in this one? The Chargers, I think, on paper, the better team. Obviously, they have the better record. As you said, Bronco fans are not high on this team at all, but they are still 5-5. They've been competitive in a lot of games, but they've also looked bad in a lot of games. So how do you think this game unfolds on Sunday?
Man, it really is close to a toss-up here because the Chargers are the better team, and they absolutely have the better quarterback, and it looks like they have the better head coach right now too. And when you have those two things typically pretty much go your way. However, traveling on the road makes it a little more difficult, especially with the holiday kind of messing practice schedules up just a tiny bit, but it's doing that for every team in the NFL. And the Chargers love to be the Chargers, and people in Denver say that all the time. They have mystery injuries, they have crazy things happen, lungs get punctured by their own team, and they almost find a way to blow the game to the Steelers last week. Now, credit to Justin and the Chargers for not losing and holding it together. But saying that, I think the Chargers win this game. I think I know they have the better quarterback, and Justin Herbert, I think this is going to be a big game for him. Instead of falling to 5 or closer to 500, I think he's going to take off. And I was very skeptical of Justin Herbert coming out of the draft. And boy, have I done a complete 180 on him. I have so much respect for him. And this is a tough place to play, especially for the Chargers. But I don't think they get Drew locked like they did last year. Of course, with that fourth quarter comeback, I think the Chargers hold on and win this one.
Yeah. Yeah, for some reason, well, I guess not for some reason, but Chargers fans hate Drew Lock, probably just because of that one game. But there is a big disdain for Drew Lock, he's only played 18 games in the NFL, but for some reason he's like one of the most hated QBs among the Charger fan base. But should be a great game. We talk about Justin Herbert obviously on the show all the time, as he's now between him and Matt Stafford. Like, the talent we have in this town is remarkable and fun to cover for sure. But what makes Herbert so fun is he's had bad games this year, and specifically just last week had a really poor game. But how he's bounced back and how he's put the team on his back, he's able to come out on prime time. He seems to play better when the lights are on him, which is something some teams and some quarterbacks aren't able to do. So that's, I think, what puts this team over the edge. And this defense is getting better. I know the scoreboard showed 37 points last week against Pittsburgh, but 3 fluke plays, a blocked punt in the red zone, a tipped pass that basically went over the Oculus and SoFi and landed in Steelers' arms. You turn a 14-point swing right there. So the defense overall, I think, is improving. But the Broncos coming off a bye, I think, is something too that now a lot of people are talking about that does typically help. You get that extra rest, get some guys back. They get those young linebackers that they've traded for now who have played really well so far for Fangio, and they get more time in the system. So overall, I think it's going to be a good game, but I agree. I think the Chargers at this point are the favored and are the better team, but any given Sunday, right? We'll see what goes on. So
exactly.
Zach, I appreciate you, brother. Yeah, man, you are the man. Appreciate you. Keep doing the great work there at DNVR. Love the bar you guys got out there and everything. So we'll definitely link up again soon. Okay.
Absolutely. That sounds great. Thanks for having me on. Love chopping it up.
Thanks, my man, Zach. And thank you all for tuning in. And if you're watching on YouTube at LAFB Network, make sure to hit that subscribe button. We appreciate it. Would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below, or hit me up on Twitter at Ryan Dyrud, LAFB. How we feeling, Bolt fam, about this game? Chargers win by 1 million. Do the Broncos strike again like they did last year once? It should be a great game all around. Bolts hopefully come out on top. I do like them in this game. I just think they're the better team, better coached, obviously the better quarterback. So barring some miraculous defensive efforts from Denver, the Chargers should win this game, is what it comes down to. They should win this game. Will they? It's a division game. I don't want anyone to freak out, but division games, anyone can win anytime. That's the beauty of division games. But I like the Bolts. Hopefully they will, play how they should play, take this victory, and take sole possession. Well, I guess the Chiefs are technically ahead too. But if the Chiefs lose, then they'd be back up on top. But a lot of season to play as the Chargers continue to get better. So hope you all have a great Thanksgiving. If you are listening to this after Thanksgiving, hope you had a great Thanksgiving with friends and family and loved ones, and enjoy this weekend slate of games. We got a lot of stuff planned at the LA Football Network, so make sure to keep it right here for your LA football needs. Peace.